Ah, yes. Hi. How are you doing today? Good. I'm glad to hear that. Are you ready for your lesson today? Good. It's going to be really interesting. I'm excited. So, in case you haven't noticed, I do have my Christmas tree up, and that is my dog snoring. I do have my Christmas tree up. Um, so, I thought that maybe, if you didn't mind, we could do our lesson by the Christmas tree. Is that okay? I thought you'd like that idea. All right, cool. Before we begin, would you like a Christmas cookie? Okay. Well, they'll be right here if you change your mind, if you need a snack. Also, I did get you a Christmas present. Yes, I did. It's the gift of knowledge, and it's priceless. You're welcome. Okay, so I will start off by telling you why I chose this subject to do my research on. So, back in 2016, I became a CNA, a certified nursing assistant. I had never been around anybody that had dementia. I mean, I knew that meant that like you were sick and you forgot things. Like that was as much as I knew about it. So I got through my classes and started working as an in-home caregiver. So I would go to people's houses and take care of them. And then last year, I worked at an assisted living community in Allen, and I worked specifically in the memory care unit, and I was a med tech, so I would make sure everybody got their pills at night. I remember as soon as I started spending time with people who had dementia, like I immediately felt like at home, and I felt like I clicked with them, and like maybe my purpose was to be able to help those people get better care by being able to understand their needs and be able to meet them, because sometimes people with dementia, they can't communicate the same way that you and I can. So they need someone to be able to anticipate those needs and be able to meet them. So that's why I did research on this project. On this subject, I find it so interesting, and I hope that you do too. I also think it's a great subject just to remind you to empathize with other people. The reality that someone with dementia experiences every day is completely different than you and I experience. And I would imagine it's almost like a nightmare. So they need people rooting for them and trying to understand them and connect with them, because they definitely have needs too, and they have desires, and they want to feel loved, and they want to feel good. They want people to listen to them when they're talking to them. So I'm excited to share this information with you, and I hope that maybe you'll be able to walk away with something that can maybe help you or somebody else in the future. So let's get started. I am going to start with some biopsychology, because it is important to understand that before we really get into dementia, because the brain plays such a huge part in our sensory and perception, in our neurons and how they communicate with each other. In someone who has dementia, those functions are virtually lost and damaged. So let's look at some visuals here. So, I got my pointer. Okay, so first let's look right here. So right here I have two neurons, and they are wanting to communicate with each other. So neurons are our brain cells, and you and I know that from class, from our previous lessons, but let's review just really quick. So we have the soma, the cell body, the dendrites here that pick up signals from other neurons, and then turn that into an electrical signal. So they collect the chemical signal that goes all the way down the axon, and then it's turned into an the electric signal travels down the axon, and it's turned into a chemical signal. So at the very end here, at the synapse, neurotransmitters are made, and they are sent over to the other synapse through the synaptic gap, and that's how they communicate with each other. So someone with Alzheimer's or dementia, their neurons are dying and they're unable to regenerate anymore. So once they're dead, they're gone. They're not coming back. So, like a lot of times people with Alzheimer's have depression, and that makes sense because they're unable to generate serotonin and keep the serotonin levels normal in the brain. So therefore, you have depression and other mental illnesses. So in someone with Alzheimer's, they're going to have protein buildup that tingles all through the neuron and keeps it from functioning properly. So there's a little bit of biopsychology there. So over here, I wanted to mention frontotemporal lobe dementia. So that affects the frontal and temporal lobes, obviously. So the frontal lobe right here on the brain is going to be responsible for language. That's where Broca's area is. So someone with FTP might experience aphasia, which is word salad. They try to speak the words, but it just comes out jumbled. It also, the frontotemporal lobes affect emotion, judgment, personality. So when the brain shrinks, those areas are unable to function properly, and that's what happens when you have dementia. So, and that's also known as Pick's disease, fun fact, because of the doctor who found this disease. So next you have Lewy body disease, or Lewy body dementia, excuse me. So that mainly affects the limbic system, which is thalamus, hypothalamus, hippocampus, corpus callosum, and also someone with Lewy bodies, they're going to experience motor loss, so they're going to be unable to move and control their movements. They're going to be unable to sleep because that's where melatonin is generated. Formation of new memories, that happens in the hippocampus. And it's the same thing with Alzheimer's disease. Those two diseases mainly affect the hippocampus and the cerebral cortex. So once the brain starts to shrink and you have atrophy in the brain, that's really when all these areas they're unable to function properly. So with Alzheimer's disease, I thought I'd point out you also might get apraxia, which is like someone with apraxia, you could say, pick up the fork, and that person wouldn't be able to do it. They would be confused. Or put your arm through the shirt hole. They can't do it. That's called apraxia, and it's when the parietal lobe shrinks. You have vision change, ataxia, which is the temporal lobe. That's when you're unable to recognize objects or faces. So, excuse me, you can see just how important all of this is. We talked about all of this in class. Memories, emotion, the areas of the brain, and how they all work together to give us the experience that we have. And then also the importance of biopsychology and neurodegenerative disease. I'm running a little bit